Hi, and welcome to my week 6 in review video. So, I wanted to share my insights about the discussion that everyone posted. So, first, everyone across the board said that there should be an A in STEM for art, so it should be STEAM. Um, Taylor talked about a steam truck that visited the Y that she worked out. I want to hear more about that steam truck. That sounds like so much fun. People also shared that the art that is embedded with STEAM has to be meaningful and foster creativity. It should be process oriented, not product oriented, and clearly support and augment the STEM activities. So it's not art that's going to overshadow the activity or not art for the sake of art, but ways that art can support the STEM learning, such as drawing or documenting the STEM experience that's taking place. Um, People also said definitely no dittos, but possibly using mats or ways to support children's hands-on engagement. Um, in relation to the second, was it the second question or the third question? I think it was the second question now, that I'm saying it. There were six elements of STEAM components for a STEAM process in the What is STEAM reading. Focus, detail, discover, application, present, and link. And those were the six components that I was aiming for you to connect to your origami. And so a couple people linked those to their response. Um, Other people thought more globally about STEM and STEAM, so I appreciate that. Clearly, everyone thought about collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving is very important in early childhood. My question to you was, how can we advocate for it and how can we intentionally embed it in our early childhood programs and our early childhood STEAM learning opportunities? So, in thinking about changing the acronym from STEAM to STREAM, the results were much more varied. There were majority of people said there's no need to change. A couple people said yes, we should change it to STREAM, and about the same amount of people said there's no need, or they really it was like they were on the fence, right? They were uncertain. So most people said no. About four people said yes, and about four people said they're really not sure, uncertain. Most people said that literacy is already embedded into STEAM in so many ways, and literacy is such an emphasis of our curriculum that we have reading and writing embedded throughout our day, and we have to fight for STEAM and STEM time. So I appreciate that. I also just want to emphasize that thinking about STEAM and literacy, reading and writing, really focuses on an integrated curriculum so that you're looking at all curricular aspects in your early childhood day as opposed to discrete learning opportunities, right? Instead of having a math block or a reading block or a social studies block or a science block, you're thinking about things holistically and you're thinking about learning that happens in a more holistic manner because young children learn that way. They don't learn in isolation. Um, they don't just learn science or just learn math. Um, they learn things in an integrated way. So, for the reflection, I want to point out that Taylor, Miracle, Michelle, Callie, Bianca, Jordan, and Araceli noted that they watched Mr. Rogers. I also watched Mr. Rogers as a child. Um, One person shared that they would watch Mr. Rogers, but the show was in English and they were not an English speaker. So they would watch part of it and then when they just became frustrated and um, couldn't understand, they would switch it off. And I wonder, how do you think Mr. Rogers would have responded if he had known that? I'm sure on some level he did, right? I'm sure. But if he as a person, knowing what we know now, and clearly he had, you know, limits to what he could do, but that was just a thought I had as I was reading that person's experience. Callie said that she saw her role in early childhood as someone who should scaffold thinking while protecting the joy in learning that young children experience, which struck me. And that was in her response to the material from Mr. Rogers. Jacqueline pointed out that children need to be safe and secure to learn, and again equated that to what we saw from Mr. Rogers. A lot of people talked about Mr. Rogers' value emphasis on valuing wonder and curiosity, and my response was, how will you value wondering and curiosity in young children, in adults, and in yourselves? Because as um, masterful early childhood teachers, we have to engage in reflective practice in which we wonder and we are curious about ourselves, about children, about our work with families, about our work in the classroom. And so, how will we support that in our own work? Um, there was an emphasis on in responses in regards to Mr. Rogers' calm and not rushed um, demeanor. And, I wonder how, and I know myself as an early childhood teacher, I'm always very bubbly in my videos. I'm very bubbly. I try to be very joyful. And, how can we embed that into our role with young children? Some people spoke about that. Um, and asked were reflecting on that. And I thought about that also in the context of our environments. I have the privilege of visiting many early childhood classrooms, and some classrooms that I go into are very bright and very lively. There's music playing in the background. It's very, very colorful, bright colors everywhere, things hanging from the ceiling, the walls covered in decorations. And it's a very stimulating environment, and very, very loud environment. And I wonder what would Mr. Rogers say about that. I have no answer. And clearly we can't ask him, but I just wonder. People talked about Mr. Rogers honoring the minds and capacities of young children in a simple way, right? He also relished in the simplicity, and using routines and predictability to foster that, um, or to recognize that capacity, because he knew young children. And again, people talked about making friends with failure, which we discussed uh, in the Ramirez article from our origami experience. And people also talked about Mr. Rogers being so ahead of his time in so many ways. He did not focus on entertainment as many of the children's shows of that time did. If you think about Romper Room or Howdy Doody or other shows along those lines. But he was also ahead of his time, and this wasn't talked about in the videos, excuse me, in the readings and the materials, in regards to race relations, in regards to disability, in regards to LGBTQIA plus issues. So he was ahead of his time in social issues and social causes as well. So he was a real trailblazer in many ways. And thank you for your, as always, for your thoughtful and insightful comments. I also want to note that as our course has progressed, I have noticed your interactions and your comments to your classmates have become deeper and richer. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate reading those. And I've appreciated the metamorphosis of your thoughtfulness and your insightfulness in your responses to your colleagues. Initially, I understand we were forming our community, but I've really now seen your your safety and your comfort take hold, to use Mr. Rogers' words, and you're engaging in risk taking and being more uh, bold and brave and thoughtful and using your knowledge and insights and making thoughtful connections. So thank you for that. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to reviewing your final projects. Be well.